So hello, everybody. I am Daya Naef with the Success Partner, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Ellen Sullivan of Cambridge Immigration Law. We know with the recent election that there are going to be some changes, and immigration was a really hot topic. So I'm pleased to have Ellen just come today and share with our audience what she thinks some of the trends are going to be in that area.
All right, thanks, Daya. So, everything's going to change. We already went through this in 2016. I can't imagine that it's going to be better. I think it's going to be worse. I think from a starting point, the treatment of non-citizens in the United States, whether through the government agencies or just, in the media from, reporting what the Republicans will be saying, is just going to be negative and xenophobic. The laws immediately will not change. But with it looks like the Republicans are going to be controlling the House, the Senate, obviously the presidency, and the Supreme Court. It would not surprise me if we do have some changes to the statutes, which is a big deal and hasn't happened in a very long time. But that won't happen right away. So the laws are going to stay the same for a while, but the way that they're implemented is going to really change. One thing, well, first, just the way people are treated, the way that gray areas are interpreted, the way that people are believed is going to be negative, and it's not going to be in non-citizens' favor. Then an important issue to note is that the immigration agency is under the executive branch, and so there are lawmaking parts of the executive of the immigration agency, which is like the Board of Appeals of the immigration agency and immigration courts, which means that most of the controlling law on or interpretations of the law happen under the executive branch, and there's no real check or balance on them until a case gets a pretty far along. And the Attorney General has the power to rescind and rewrite old or prior precedent. So, and that happened during the first Trump administration. Basically, Jeff Sessions woke up in the middle of the night and rewrote the controlling law on really important issues. It's mind-blowing how that can happen. And again, it's not a change in the statute. It's a change in the interpretation of a statute. But it can be done by one person without any real notice or check, and it affects people immediately. So no good news there.
What about people who are already in the process? Like which part of the process is going to be affected the most soon?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, again, these laws still exist. There will be an immigration process still, and so some people will be fine. They will get through the process. The rights are there, the benefits are there, the procedures for getting to the end goal are there. People who have, like I said, borderline cases, or people who aren't native English speakers or super fluent in English, white, wealthy European countries, those people who aren't in those groups will be treated differently, and really kind of have to be all of those things. I see a very stark difference in the way that my Black clients are treated than non-Black clients, and also clients where there's generally just Black clients. It's amazing how obvious it is. And that was really apparent during the Trump administration. So those folks will just be treated differently. They'll still be on the path. They might get to the end goal, but the government can make it a lot more difficult for them. In terms of the procedures that won't exist, there's some humanitarian benefits that the president is allowed to enact. They're temporary, but they can be long-term temporary. Those programs were challenged on the Trump administration and will be challenged again, if not eliminated. The problem with eliminating them is that Trump will be challenged with litigation, and often when he's trying to eliminate a program, the elimination will be put on hold while the courts are dealing with the case. But programs that would be in that category would be temporary protected status. There are folks from El Salvador who have been in this country since the early 90s and who have been been living on temporary protected status because they don't have other options, and their lives are extended every 18 months with very little notice, and they have no idea if they're going to keep having their lives here. Can you imagine having your life here since the 90s in 18-month segments, and you don't know if you're going to be able to continue with your job, your family, your kids' education, the money you're putting towards your retirement, the ownership of your home? You don't know if that's going to be eliminated. And now everyone in those categories of temporary protected status is at risk of having even more anxiety about their status. Because again, Trump's going to try to eliminate it. It's not going to be an overnight elimination. And then everyone's going to be in limbo as to like what is going on. So anyways, temporary protected status will be challenged, if not eliminated, if he's successful. Other humanitarian programs that Biden enacted for people from Haiti, Venezuela, Colombia, and I know I'm missing someone, Cuba. Those programs will probably be eliminated as well. They weren't like awesome programs anyways, but the intent was to try to help people that were from countries that were suffering.
Yeah. I mean, I know immigration is very complicated, and it sounds like it's just going to get even more complicated with all the varying classes and the varying programs. Are you ready for an onslaught of clients? It sounds like this is going to be a big necessity for you guys in the field.
Yeah, so people ask that. I don't know if there's going to be that many more clients. There's always immigrants, like moving, migrating, trying new things, surviving. It's just part of life, and people are doing it all the time. I am not an expert on the numbers on how, immigration waves. I know that they've gone up and down. I know they've actually been down recently. The big focus from the Republican Party is the border and like how many people are coming over the border. And again, I'm not an expert in those numbers. So, with that caveat that I'm not an expert, like it just happens all the time. It's just part of life. One difference will be is that what I say is, yeah, I'm probably going to get bad business though. Like it's just going to be like the morale during the first Trump administration was so low in terms of immigration because he was targeting anyone that he could. The reality is there's millions of people in the country here that are undocumented. And the other reality is that we, every single day, every person who is a documented or undocumented person relies on the contributions of undocumented people every single day.
Mhm.
So we're not going to, even if the Republicans say they're going to, they're not going to get rid of everyone because they know that there's just the roles they play in the community, the stores they have, the services they provide, the taxes that they pay, the taxes that they're paying, the Social Security payments that this fund that they're paying into, and then most of them not even benefiting from it, but benefiting us. So it's just but the problem is that there's people that are undocumented, and yeah, they've done probably some really bad things. Then there's people that are undocumented and they've been here for like 2 decades doing nothing but raising families and working. Those people are going to be equally targeted, and any person who gets put into deportation proceedings can be detained. And most reasonable presidential administrations know like there's certain people we should detain and certain we shouldn't. Trump administration, every person that I met and warned about deportation, I said, and you could also be detained. I had a kid who was 18 years old who went to the airport stupidly. His visa like had just expired less than a month earlier, and he went to the airport because his brother was visiting. He got detained, and because he was a visa overstay as a tourist, he was planning on going home soon. He's just a little bit late. He got detained for 3 weeks, and it cost him, thousands of dollars to hire me to get him out of detention. And had I not done that, like he wouldn't have got out of detention while they were trying to figure out what to do with his case. He actually had something to apply for, and so he's here still. But that person, like normally I would say, listen, just, you can't overstay your visa. If you do, you're probably not a big target. And if they come across you, you're probably not going to be detained. Now, no, anyone can be detained.
Yeah,
That's undocumented. That's undocumented.
right. Yeah, or overstayed or
Right,
without
right.
the proper
So,
paperwork.
yeah. So I guess your question is there going to be more business? I don't know if there's actually going to be numbers more. Like, are there going to be more people? Like, I think there's going to be people that don't want to interact with government that would have without Trump. And I think there's going to be people that have to interact with Trump because he's going to put them in removal proceedings, and people that maybe don't need to do anything right now with their status, but can. And they're like, oh my God, we should do this right now because if we don't, like, what's going to happen to us? So it's going to be it's going to be different business and probably not always happy. And certainly my clients are going to be much more stressed about engaging with the government or not, just like living here without trying to get any status.
Sort of that in limbo. Let me clarify it for some of our non lawyer background and even myself. When you say detention, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, good question. So people that are deportable, meaning they don't have a basis for being here today, it doesn't mean they couldn't have a defense in court, but today they don't have any ability to stay here. Um, or they have a status that the government's challenging, usually because they've committed some crimes. So the government says, you're deportable. We're going to bring you to immigration court and we're going to deport you. It's a process that takes months, if not years. And anyone who's initially put into immigration court proceedings can be detained. It's just part of the process. It's a civil process that includes deprivation of liberty for sometimes weeks, months, even longer sometimes. So it just means that you can get arrested and be held in a jail, an immigration jail that doesn't have a lot of the protections like basic health care and medical care, even emergency medical care that other jails do. So you're held in an immigration facility, for-profit ones generally. You're held in an immigration facility until you either get out on bond, which generally requires hiring a lawyer, getting a court date set, convincing a judge that you're shouldn't be detained while you're figuring things out, and then you can be released. There's some people that won't get released because the judges will say, nope, we're not going to release you because we think you're just going to take off, or we think you're a danger to the community, which sometimes is the right decision, but often it's not when they make that decision to deny bond, or they put a bond so high that a person can't pay a $15,000 bond to get out. And then there's other folks who just actually by law can't be released because they generally have criminal convictions that make them unreleasable. And that's just a different issue than detaining anyone that the law allows you to detain. It's kind of like saying that, it's detention in the criminal setting is much harder to actually enact, but like every day police see people speeding or crossing going through a pedestrian crosswalk, and they don't pull everyone over because they can't, but they could pull everyone over and ticket them. I won't speak to detention in the criminal arena because I'm not an expert on that, but it just like police can do a lot more than they are doing, but they realize they don't need to and can't because of limited resources.
Yeah, that's what was kind of sparking a light bulb in my mind. It's like we have all this prison reform issue and this overcrowding of prisons and having to let just letting people out, which can't put them anywhere. And then now it seems like we have this whole other ghost process with less rights, and yet it's still going to cost a ton of money and not be very efficient.
Right. And I'm not an expert on prison, just the prison system, but a lot of it is for profit, and buddies of the president undoubtedly will be making a lot of money out of this.
Yeah, I think that's a new fact for people out there that the prison system is mainly for profit and run by outsourced institutions. I don't think a lot of people in the general world know that.
Right.
So thank you again, Ellen. I really appreciate you jumping on with this very timely information. Again, everybody, this is Ellen Sullivan with Cambridge Immigration Law, and I am Daya Naef with the Success Partner. I do work with small law firms all over the country in different areas, immigration, family, tax planning, and the other. So we'll be having some more comments from some other law firm owners as well on those issues. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Taya.